Welcome to Momentum Magnet, a podcast to inspire your growth. I'm Karen Morales, and your host in helping you find ways to make positive changes for your business, health, relationships, and life. We always have a path to a happier ending, so let's get started today. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Momentum Magnet. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different, inspired by some conversations that I had this week in the world. So what I was thinking is what really drives the power behind an amazing comeback story. It's funny because I think over the course of the last 3 to 4 months, we have all spent so much time talking about all the things that are broken, all of the problems that we've faced in the world and in our homes and our businesses and our lives. And somehow it feels that maybe we've gotten away from some of the stories that give us strength, the ones that ignite our fire to do better, to try harder, and to come up with happier endings. So today, I wanted to go to a place in my past, a place in the story that I wrote that was literally my great comeback, and talk a little bit about some of the things that I put in place to get out of the darkest period in my life are actually the very same philosophies that I apply in my role as the owner of a marketing agency, Marketing Magnet. I'm not new to marketing, right? I've spent 20 years in this industry, having worked in PR, marketing consulting, and traditional advertising. And in all those years, I've built brands. I've worked on many of the iconic brands you know and love: Delta Airlines, American Express, Progressive Insurance, ESPN, Blue Cross Blue Shield, all big, big companies. And the funny thing is, when I was going through my deep, dark time in 2016, I realized when I look back and I was trying to explain in a speaking opportunity a couple years ago what I had really done to climb out of a super hard time in my own life, rules and marketing mottos that I've applied to Fortune 500 accounts like Fidelity, Delta, American Express, Panasonic. So why does this matter? Why does the comeback story matter? Well, it's simple. I think it's really a key set of life advice for any of us. If you're trying to grow your business, especially in the time of COVID, this is totally for you. And if you're not trying to grow a business, but you're trying to not only survive, but thrive right now, this is also for you. Because I'm going to assume, hopefully correctly, that all of us are really in the business of being the best and happiest versions of ourselves. So in either case, whether you're a business owner or just a human, got you covered. So now that it's settled that this comeback story can be applicable no matter where you are in your life, I'm going to share a little bit about how I got to a place where I actually needed to define a comeback motto. You know, most of the times our lives, when we talk about having a comeback story, we've had to come back from a really dark place. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to start there. I'm going to start in my really dark time. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story that got me to where I am today. So we're going to start with the darkness. Have you ever had one of those moments or that time in your life where it was really, really hard, a season that seemed absolutely impossible? I mean, I think for a lot of people listening today, it might be 2020, might be the last 3 months. It might still be right now in this moment today. But for me, 2016 was absolutely hands down 100% my season. In March of 2016, I woke up almost overnight and found out I was in a failing marriage. And as if the failing marriage wasn't enough, I was also deep in a battle with a degenerative illness called limb-girdle muscular dystrophy. It was this strange diagnosis that I had gotten as a junior in college, one that I wasn't expecting and clearly didn't want. So as I walked around a neurology office waiting room full of literally every single student from the med school class studying neurology or in that rotation, I was told that I had an extremely rare form of muscular dystrophy called myosin myopathy, that it tended to highly index with tribes in Africa and some groups in Japan, that they couldn't exactly tell me what was going to happen, but it really, in all likelihood, could somehow end me up in a wheelchair. I was not having it. like any college junior, the idea of being told that someday you wouldn't be able to walk was not only unbelievable, but it was a hard no. I looked at the team of doctors that day and I said, you have 20 years to cure me, because there is no way in hell that I'm living in a wheelchair. I walked out of that meeting. I went to a Dave Matthews concert and I tried to put that diagnosis behind me. I did over the course of, 19 to 39, the year that my life started to fall apart. I had pretty much done that. But unfortunately, some of their prediction was correct. After having my 2 babies, my health faltered. It was harder to get out of a chair. It was really hard to walk up steps without a railing. And over the year or 2 prior, it was almost impossible to even get up and down a curb without holding on to someone's arm or a railing. But I had in my mind that I had this good job and I had these 2 healthy kids and I had a partner, and all of those things were my coping mechanisms that I didn't have to deal with the big, bad, ugly that was in front of me, which was, what the hell is going to happen if my health actually falters? So in 2016, when I saw my husband walking away, it was not my most confident hour. I felt like my failing health probably made me less worthy, attractive, and lovable. And I felt like failing in this marriage was not only my body failing me, but it was me failing my 2 small children. In that moment, I felt like my job as an SVP at a global ad agency was burning me out. But since I did have flexibility and a pretty good paycheck, I didn't feel like I had any other options. And my ideal life and my identity that if someone actually ever loved you, they would not walk away without a fight, was broken, because that wasn't happening in that moment in time in my marriage. So in my heart, all the things that I once took for granted and all of the things that kept me feeling safe and able to cope with a really challenging medical diagnosis were gone. I had felt like I was this medical survivor. I was a mom, I was an SVP, I was a wife. And in an instant, all of those identities were slipping away. They were suddenly replaced in my mind with a pretty terrible list: disabled, failing, burned out, rejected. I was literally petrified to get out of bed in the morning. I regularly threw up in the bathroom and I shook so hard that I forgot to eat. Most importantly and silently, I just felt so terrible about my public failure. All of these identities that I had in the past, the wife, the corporate executive, the mom, the PTA worker, were things that really kept me going and made me feel like I was doing a good job to circumvent my illness. And now I felt that those were all broken and the signs of failure were literally tattooed on my body. There was literally no way to hide any longer that my health was somewhat failing, that I felt lost and alone, and I didn't know what to do about it. I mean, really, how good about yourself do you feel when you have to walk with a cane and you actually own a handicap pass permanently in your 30s? In my mind, I didn't feel like a good mom anymore when I had to tell the teachers at kindergarten orientation that the kids were really acting out because their dad had moved out of our home. I was not feeling great in business meetings. I would often walk in and lead huge teams of publicly traded companies, often a full room of male executives in a marketing brand strategy meeting. But if that conference room chair had wheels, I would be panicked the whole meeting how I was going to get up from it without causing a scene. Or how lovable do you feel when your long-term partner walks away and, has someone else? I felt that this divorce only shouted from the rooftops my deepest, darkest fears, that I was literally an unlovable failure. So I did what most people in businesses do when nothing is working. I just fought harder and harder to keep what I knew. And that's the simple truth. So many of us, whether we're a business or a person, a brand or a human, we just resist change. We hold on so tight to what we already know because it's so easier to stay where you are, even when you're miserable, than to change direction. I think so many of us fear failure more than the hope and the potential outcome that comes with doing something different. So in life and marketing, I really know that one thing is true. For you to get a comeback, it often takes a completely dead end to shake you out of your routine and out of your rut to really consider and take action on that change. So like all the companies and humans before me, put my head in the sand, said I was fine, and kept trying to hold on to the job, the marriage, the identity of the 2-person household, the pretending that my health wasn't an issue. And I said I was fine. And I think that's why so many humans and companies struggle the most, is because they find it easier to say that they're fine than to actually question objectively where they are and start reframing what fine really is. So like a company facing bankruptcy, I held on to my past, all these definitions. I need to keep my marriage. I need to be in a together home. I need to keep this job I hate. I need to not let anyone know that my legs are an issue. And by pushing all these things down, I felt even more messed up. And that went on for a year and a half. Until finally, I was so tired. I just was so tired of running up against this wall of not being able to turn any of these situations back to where they were, that I finally came to the realization that I really need to ask a better question. And I started with this kind of simple idea. What if I didn't actually need what I used to have? And what if my future was in the open potential of what would be amazing? And it was from there that I started to get an entirely different answer. I realized that it wasn't about getting back to what I had. It was about walking into what I wanted to become. So the first rule in comeback, whether it's in marketing or life, is this. You must know and believe in what you wish to become, even when it is entirely different from where you are today. This is literally the most important rule. So we're going to spend some time here, and I'm going to give you a little bit more of my story. Most people in businesses have a defining moment when they need to choose about whether they're willing and able to change directions. And I'll tell you my version of the switch. My direction change, the beginning of my comeback story, started in 2017 in a conference center in New Jersey. And in case you are not at all interested in jumping and hugging and dancing and massaging 14,000 people with Tony Robbins in Newark, New Jersey, at UPW or Unleash the Power Within, I'll give you the cliff notes on how I found my ability to change directions in that huge room. The thing that we did there that was instrumental, and the thing I often do with my clients, is the same. It's starting with, when you get stuck in life or business, you need to figure out what it is about your identity and your rules that are keeping you there. So in my example, just my personal one, my identity was giving me pain because all my rules for life were broken. And those rules were something like good kids who are happy and successful always have 2 parents at home. Good workers were never burnt out. They always found a way to push through. Love was faithful. Lovable people weren't left. Healthy people who went all in and tried as many healing modalities that I did could always miraculously heal. It was in that room in Newark that I began to question those rules, and they began to fall apart. But I guess I would have been skeptical too. And I'm sure you are there today. If you're sitting there and you're stuck in your life and you're like, I can't make progress. And you're like, okay, I really don't understand you. Can you really question your identity and rules when you're really that off, when your life is really falling apart that dramatically? And I think there is a really interesting, not even that intuitive tactic to let you do it. And I'll tell you how I did and how I coach businesses to do the very same exercise within their own companies. I started by writing down on paper all the things that I was not. So what does that mean? Okay. So the things that were keeping me stuck were all these horrible beliefs that really didn't feel good, like feeling unlovable. So I wrote down on a piece of paper, I am unlovable. And I said, shoot, I didn't like it. Writing that on paper, I was like, that is not true. That cannot be true. That is not true for any human on this planet. And because I asked it that way, it was much easier for me to believe it. So I started there. I started with all these things that I had told myself that were pretty limiting, and I was able to cross them off one by one. So if you're a person, you could write, I am dumb. I am bad with money. I am not reliable. I am always late. You can look at those things and you can then start to say, well, is that actually 100% true? Is there no area for improvement there that could make that better? And then you start to have leverage to make change. The same is for a business. I've had many business owners come to me and say, I'm not good with money, or I don't have a business degree. But then they go on to say, oh, I created a business out of my basement basement and now it's referral only and I've got too much work that I can't even keep up with. And I say, well, okay, is your belief that you're not good at business true? And they're like, no. I'm like, is your belief that you've never studied business in an academic setting? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, could it be true that you're also a natural business entrepreneur? And they're like, sure. So questioning those beliefs really helps you start to get a better sense on what could be. So I wrote them down one by one. I started with, I'm a burnout quitter at my job. And then I quickly crossed that off and said, nope, I just literally need a better one. And I said, I'm broke and we need to move. And I said, nope, screw that. I'm going to do everything I can in my power to keep this house no matter what it takes. And I wrote down, I'm not good enough to stay married. And then I also crossed that off and said, nope, maybe this is just a sign that I've outgrown this partner. So when in your life or business you are failing, are you trying to swim against the signs? Do you have rules that need to change? The best brands, the happiest humans, they reinvent themselves instead of continuing to swim in the same way upstream. It may work for the salmon, but it doesn't work for everybody else. They give themselves empowering definitions before they reach that end zone. So that's why the homeless kid can get into Harvard, because they have that vision in their head before it is even possible to know how the heck they can make it happen. It's how a dorm room project like Facebook took shape, because Mark and team just believed it could. Or it's how someone like Tom Brady, even if you hate the Patriots, was able to go from a third string college player to the greatest of all time in his 40s. It's because he believed it even when nobody else did. They defined their own identity and then they made the rules, like crazy vegan eating, until they got there. So a clear identity and operational rules is your brand motto. And it's the same whether you're one person or a major brand. It is your key to your comeback. So for me, I was able to put my life back together by changing my beliefs and starting to repeat over and over again. I am resilient. I am strong. I am happy. And I'm the best possible candidate to take this hellstorm and demonstrate that I've overcome. I started to really believe and craft the story in my head that, oh my God, what would be the best antidote to this life crisis and to prove that it would be my great awakening? And that idea finally was motivating enough for me to take action. My failures didn't matter anymore. Instead, they almost were just like an interesting, backstory, an interesting bit of drama that led me to get to this place where I could look for improvement and I could make decisions every day of my life to get to a better outcome. The same applies to your business. If you don't know what to do right now, you need to think about what you want this business to stand for and what are the rules that you can put in place to live it out every day. Zappos is like an amazing example of this. So they are like the dream team of customer service, and every corporate boardroom talks about them in many, many meetings. I mean, I think I probably have like a file folder of Zappos customer service decks because it has come up so many times in presentations over the course of the last, 10 years. It's because the whole brand wasn't about shoes. It was about service. So it was created when people said, you know what, going to the shoe store is really annoying. Wouldn't it be nice if you could get shoes like clothes at your house and you could return them with no hassle? So they decided that their brand was really about creating a better experience. And so they based their identity on creating rules for their employees that really backed up this idea of deliver the best experience. So while at most companies that have a call center, they're all incented to get off the phone as quickly as possible with consumers. The more people they can serve, the more people they can get on and off the phones. The idea is the happier they will be. Not Zappos. They basically say, do what is right for the customer. They do actual contests every year for the longest call and the happiest outcome. They've had employees talk on the phone for like 12 hours. They've talked people out of suicidal thoughts. They've kept lonely widowers company in the middle of the night. They've actually ordered pizza for customers that call in. Don't try that, but it has happened. And they've talked about people's kids. They know who they are, and they actually ladder their operational standards around this idea of do what the customer needs, not what we want them to do. So my first really rule in the comeback is this: know who you are, make rules that are emotional and compelling. And that can be evidenced by someone like Apple. Apple never said, I want to be like kind of better. I mean, that's not going to get anybody anywhere. The most successful brands, whether you're a person with a major comeback or a business with a life-changing idea, they dream big. And the good news is you really don't have to wait until your life implodes to get there. Even if things are going all right for you, fine is not good enough. Saying you're fine in life or your sales are fine or your team is fine, that's never going to lead you to greatness. That's not where we need to aim. For you to get amazing results, you have to have something that lights your fire and gets you out of bed in the morning. It has to be high-minded. It has to be inspiring. It has to have an emotional edge. If you're a business or a person and your goal isn't as focused and inspiring to get you out of the bed in the morning, it will not help you in the hardest moments. So remember, to make this comeback in your life and in your business, know who you are, make rules that are emotional and compelling. So step 2 in the comeback. If you can't measure it, it will not get you there. So I can't tell you how many people come to us for marketing help. And some of them have pretty successful businesses. And they make goals like this. I want to launch my new product. I want to do better at email marketing. Or my personal favorite, I just want to see a little better sales this year. Seriously? I mean, no. A few months ago, I was working on a sales campaign for this really amazing global brand. It's a startup that truly is revolutionary. The team was dreamy. The promise lit me up. But when we were sent the sales copy, they replied to us asking to really, we don't feel comfortable with you being so bold in our ambition. We just like to roll it back a little bit. And they literally sent me a stream of incoherent marketing speak words that was literally BS business speak. I had written that their goal was to end a serious pain point in the market in 10 years. And that literally was their goal. Could they do it? Well, they wanted to. Was it certain? Of course it's not, but nothing ever is. Just because you don't know how you're going to get to the end zone does not mean your goal cannot exist. In fact, not knowing how you're going to get to the end zone probably means that you are dreaming big enough to write it down on a piece of paper. That was my response to them. A very precise, bold goal is the best way to demonstrate our commitment for you to be able to better align resources and have a demonstrative outcome. I mean, I could literally sit here and say, I kind of want to be in better shape by summer. Or I could say, I want to be in the best shape of my life so that I rock that string bikini with 10% body fat, the ability to run ultra marathons, and a full 6-pack. Now, the second piece is like literally never going to happen. But if that was your goal and you were physically able to do it, that sure as heck would be a lot more motivating, and you would have a lot better sense of what you should and shouldn't be doing based on the goal being that specific. Google could say they want to make software to make things a little bit easier, or they could ladder their whole business to do the right thing. Just by the statement alone, your opinion on what these people or brands are willing to do in order to get there is entirely different. Their level of hustle really shines through that actual sentiment. I think we'd all be wise to be bold and provocative in the statements, as that is our goal. If we can have a big enough mission, we will do our best work to get to that end. It's like a medical charity. Would you rather invest in better health outcomes for breast cancer, or a team saying, we want to eradicate breast cancer by 2030? So the next most important item in your life or marketing comeback is a numerical, measurable outcome for what you want to be. And I mean, there is not a brand in Silicon Valley that doesn't follow this new way of goal setting. Some people call it OKR. Some people call it annual planning. Some people call it their strategic process. It doesn't really matter what you call it. Whether you're a brand or if you're a human with a really strong sense of what you want, whether you're Tony Robbins or, Rachel Hollis or Oprah, they all have their own versions of goal setting, but they know exactly what it is they want and they work to that end. And I would say that for my comeback, one of the best things I did after kind of reframing my identity was writing these bold, single-minded goals in every area of my life. I wrote down for my health that I wanted to get the best shape of my life. Okay, that totally hasn't always happened yet, but I did get a Peloton. I have ridden more than 300 rides, and I'm now up to 30 to 40 miles a week. And for someone that is told that they maybe shouldn't exercise, I'm feeling very good about my progress. I wanted to be at peace and healed in my relationship with my body, and I'm still getting there. But when I put that onto paper, I really started taking much more proactive steps to meditate, to be more vocal about my needs, to accept myself unconditionally, and to not apologize for some of my limitations. For my children, I said, I want my kids to be at peace with our new family, and that it didn't have to be hard. It could be beautiful and happy for all of us. And they have really started living that sentiment that I created years ago. For work, I said, forget this. I'm walking out of corporate America. I never want to go back. I want to create my own business. I want to double my salary. I want my kids to be able to live as well as or better than they are accustomed. So I literally said, earn more, work less, love my job again. Check, check, check. I've accomplished all of those things in less than 3 years. And for relationships, I said, you know what? Failure is being stuck. So I said, for me, all of these things I want in a relationship, I wrote down on paper, and then it became clear that I needed to go find them in a new one. Too many people or companies, they don't do this. They don't actually sit down and get very specific and high-minded about what it is they want to achieve. I cannot tell you how many mega brands I've sat with in boardrooms, billion-dollar brands, where every single department has a different version of success. I've been in charge of marketing plans at a corporate level, and I've had to go back to a CMO and say, hey, your corporate objective is to have more sales, more clients, and happier employees. And every single business unit has given me their own 6-page document to get there. Like, what wins? See, with that type of broad goal, there is going to be no easy way to prioritize, no ability to say what success looks like, and frankly, little chance of being at the best of your game because it's too broad. It's too fluffy. There's too many abilities to justify any single thing that you want to do. To get crazy great results, you have to be able to easily, without doubt, measure progress and know what you want or what you need to do to get there and what is absolutely not important. So rule 2 in the comeback is simple. You have to have a focused goal that is measurable. Every single great success story has one. Okay. So comeback rule 3. And this was literally the hardest one for me and still is something that I struggle with in my own life and in my business. You must create systems, but you do them slowly and in order. So as I walked into 2017 and I was getting into my rebirth or my comeback, I started stepping out of that failure loop. But putting routines in place was and still is one of the hardest things for me to do. See, I'm really good at having a big idea and having a dream because I'm a fun seeker. I am a positive person. I'm a dreamer. I'm an Enneagram 7. I am an ENFP. I go with my gut on everything. So for me, rules, routine, operations, they literally bore me as I speak the sentence. I don't enjoy doing the same things in the same order in the morning. I hate cooking the same meals. I never have days that are exactly the same. However, if I want to hit my big, bad, audacious goals, routine clearly became my answer. So in the personal growth space, Rachel Hollis has just kind of made this idea famous with a book she wrote a year or two ago. She taught the world that you aren't losing the 5 pounds or stopping yelling at your spouse because you're lazy or unmotivated or undisciplined. All words that I used to use for myself. It's because instead of focusing on one thing at a time to make progress, you're trying to do all the things at the same time and you're losing focus along the way. And I think that in the comeback, whether it's the brand or the personal one, that could be the biggest limiting factor in execution that I see for so many people and companies. It's this idea of the shiny object syndrome. It isn't because you don't know what to do. It's because you want to do all the things at the same time because you hate not making progress. So if you know sales are the issue and you've committed to an uptick in your outreach of 20% over the course of the next year, you start to get worried week 3 if you're not seeing the bang for your buck. And then you're deciding that maybe the content strategy on top of the sales outreach will really do it. You know what I'm talking about? Or perhaps you try the crash diet and, 1 week in, you haven't lost as much as Susie has, who posted her selfie on Facebook. And then you decide to put your hands up in the air and say, you know what, keto's where it's at. I know because I am this person. I do all of these things. I like fast, I like results, and I like to feel momentum. But the thing is, nothing ever happens quickly. When you study like the law of physics, you will realize that it takes 80% of the effort, right, for you to start seeing the results. And it's that last 20% of the results that are the ones that truly make a difference and make you feel like you're getting somewhere. So we all need to work much harder, or maybe not harder is the right word, but we have to work with much more consistency to actually get us to the end zone. And most of us are often impatient to get there. So the single most important thing I did over the course of the last two years to get me to the place I am today, and made me kind of 10x all of my results, was, to the best of my, I would say, non-routine wiring, I focused. So after that conference, I really looked at all of the areas of my life that needed growth and change. And I always put my focus on the one that was most important in that moment. After the conference, I was like, I've got to fix this relationship, and I have to file and walk away. And then I said, okay, I have to get these kids grounded. I put all of my effort in getting them back on track with their health and their anxiety and their schoolwork. And once that was settled, I said, okay, it's my finances. And once the finances were a little bit better and my severance was almost out from leaving my job, it was all into my business. Once the business was on track, I was back on my health. I had to keep my priorities singular at different times of my life. And by rotating them, I don't even know, it was a fluid basis. Sometimes it was a few months, sometimes it was longer. I still made progress across the lot, but I was able to kind of triage the situation that needed the most focus at the moment. So in your comeback story as a human, you must prioritize your goals based on what gives you the greatest feeling of accomplishment. And for brands, I think your greatest need in terms of this prioritization is always thinking about how you can systemize your performance to a better place. So what I mean by that is, if you're a business and you've decided that you're going to focus on sales, right? And you're going to do this 20% lift in outreach because you really want this to be the year that you get to the next level from a sales basis in your business, because it's going to give you all sorts of value and giving back to your employees, and you're going to be able to take a bigger stake in the market. You have to be thinking about that goal and always looking for ways that you can make it repeatable. So you want to put your new sales system in place, but at the same time, think about, I'm going to write this strategy down when it really works, and I'm going to be able to give it to every new employee that enters this building, and they're going to be able to use my playbook for how it works. The ideal for any business is that your beautiful strategy thought of by the top can be executed by any junior person. And that's going to save you a lot more time because you're not always having to add more jobs and titles and more bodies. If you can make your business almost franchise operating level, meaning you always know what people are going to get when you do a certain task and it's perfected, kind of like the McDonald's hamburger model. You always know what that burger is going to look like. That is the way to go. And you do not move on until you've mastered the current goal. If you're trying a whole bunch of things in order to see what magically works, it's not going to happen. So that leads us to number 4. The comeback strategy of invest in your growth constantly. Listen, during my life crisis, I decided quickly that I would spend almost any amount of money to feel better, to get an edge, to heal. I mean, my travels took me all over the world. I heard coaches, healers, Pilates instructors, took courses, went on silent meditation retreats, paid for therapists, got business advice, saw psychics. I decided early on that I was focusing on being the best version of me in all walks of life. And if you could get me there faster, I was in. It took a team to do all of this. But beyond my community of women that held me so strongly, my beautiful girlfriends who helped me through this time, I had paid help, lots of it. Could I really afford it? Well, at that exact second, no. I mean, I was like $100,000 in debt over 2 years. But I knew if I invested, I would be able to move through the pain faster. And from there, I would be able to have a quicker rebound to get myself out of debt in the future. And I did. I mean, I'm 100% debt free from all of that. And for a company doing a comeback, it means a team. And it means making sure your team is as operational as possible. Listen, you are most limited in a company by your bad employees. One bad egg will do more damage than a fleet of superstars ever can. For businesses to grow, they need to invest in the best talent and operationalize their procedures so that everybody knows what to do and they're not constantly reinventing the wheel. In smaller companies, often they want to delegate all marketing to someone making a totally low salary. I recently had a CEO tell me that I want to hire someone to do all of our marketing. I want them to go. I want them to do it. I don't want to be involved. And I asked the salary. And she said $40,000 with unlimited commission. And I said, okay, that's great. Does she have a playbook? No. So she doesn't really have the experience to do the job. I don't think any amount of money will incent you to figure it out perfectly unless you are a unicorn. Sure, there are a few unicorns, that might be able to do it. But the average person with a few years of experience, likely not. So that doesn't necessarily work, right? Or big companies that keep on hiring more and more consultants instead of just cleaning house, getting rid of their underperforming staff, and making sure everybody works to their capacity to drive the vision forward. A business sometimes waits until there is a crisis to fix things or hire. Nope. If you're a person or a company, you have to stay ahead of the trends. You need to prepare for growth and invest in your future. I know that's how it played out for me. I hired my first full-time hire before I knew I would be able to pay her salary for more than 3 months. But I saw the momentum. And in that moment, I knew if I wasn't staffed up, I was going to have to start saying no. And if I had to start saying no, I would lose my forward momentum, and that would be the first step towards failure. So I believed enough in my future to invest for growth. And you know what happened? My little goal of doubling my salary that I started out at the beginning of this talk, in less than 6 months, I was there. After I hired Paige, a whole handful of more jobs came up. And before that first year was up, I had 4 regular employees and I had already hit $1 million in revenue. I firmly believe it was because I acted as if it would come. Now, if you don't have a big business or you feel like these goals are too lofty, here's another way that this can work. It's like the first principle on knowing what you are. There's also another way to look at it. Do not invest in what you are not. This is my rule I always use as my starting place for businesses who can't prioritize or people who can't make progress. Sometimes it's much easier to ask, would not doing this keep you from your business goal? often brands and CMOs can argue themselves into an agreement that will help them create value with consumers. But if I flip it and say, would not investing in this sponsorship agreement hurt your brand? They often say no. Then I can follow up and say, so if you can't say with certainty that it will get us to business growth that justifies the spend, and if not investing won't hurt us, can you tell me why this is necessary? Then they actually usually change their minds. In my own health journey, I wasn't healing. I got a Peloton, I was working out, I did meditations, I hoped for a cure, but it just wasn't there. I always had this lingering feeling that if I had some wine, my legs hurt. I always knew that I really should be doing all the things best for my health. And if I ever had any tint of a hangover, I would actually feel so stressed and anxious that I was making myself worse. So I asked myself a hard question. Will giving up alcohol for good hurt me? No. Will giving up alcohol for good help me? And I said yes. So in the summer of 2018, I just decided I'm done with drinking for now. It was something I'd wanted to do for years, and I felt extremely guilty that I hadn't done it yet. But I think the way I asked the question was the transformation. So the very final rule in the comeback story is something that might make your eyes cross, because it is something that you likely have been told the opposite of your whole life. And it's this: hard isn't better or easier to get to than easy. So the thing is, life, business, it doesn't have to be hard. And in order to do that, you often have to change direction. You never have to be married to how the end result is going to happen. You just have to know what it is. And then you lock in the easiest way to get there. Say you want to meet your soulmate. Isn't whatever the best path to get there what you ultimately want? So if you're online dating and it isn't happening on Tinder, does it really matter? No. You want the soulmate. You don't have to have it happen on Tinder. You just say that you want to have this relationship. You put it out there in the universe and you see what happens. You show up in your best light. If the how isn't getting you to the end result, it doesn't mean that it can't come. It maybe is just going to happen in another way or another time. These same rules apply in business and as an employee. You never have to hold on to your historical way. The how is not important. You must always be optimizing to make your results better, not harder. In most cases, resistance often means, look around, buddy, there's another way. Airbnb is a great example. They launched their brand 6 times. They were a conference swap house. They finally nailed the larger appeal. And now, after COVID, they're pivoting again. So many companies, and especially entrepreneurs, need to be aware of this one thing. If you've been barely breaking even for 3 years, it is time to ask the real question. Why is it so hard? Why is progress elusive? Is there a faster path to money? In my own business journey, I quickly realized that cultivating my big brand experience led to faster and bigger paydays. It wasn't in my plan. I mean, originally, I really wanted to serve like the small people and teach them. But I listened. It was clear that in my path to keep the work coming, I should work with bigger brands because it's what I had always done. So I listened instead of trying to do it my own way. I think this is how many companies have actually grabbed onto new markets and created new opportunities that really work. It's why, during the Super Bowl, Bud Light actually focused on ingredients. Their goal to sell beer. But who drinks it? Men. And they discovered who actually does the beer shopping. You got it, women. So they changed their how and they were able to sell more beer. So in summary, your comeback story needs to have 5 elements. It needs to be empowering. You must know who you are, and more importantly, who you are not. You need to have a tangible numeric goal, and that is what is your end point, and it has to be inspiring. You need to create routines and systems because with continual effort that becomes automatic, you'll get to the next place. You want to invest in your growth constantly and before it's actually an emergency. And you have to know that hard isn't better. It's always a better plan to look for ease. And these rules, well, they fit squarely into my marketing momentum formula for every brand and essentially your life. To be an effective marketer, you must have a strong brand, a sales process, and be able to operationalize and optimize your systems. In life, that means you need to know who you want to be, what that best version of you is, and how you can constantly improve. So I'll leave you with this. In life and in business, if you want to create your big comeback, start watching and listening to people with the success you want to have, and stop saying I can't, and listen more to how can this be me. That's it. Next week, we will be bringing another comeback story from Ramon Garcia. Can't wait to share it with you. Thanks so much and happy Friday.